Good morning or good afternoon, first graders, and welcome to Art for this week. This week, either you are first learning about or reviewing what landscape is. So if you had me in class already, you've done a landscape. If you haven't, we're going to be starting a landscape next week. But a picture for Harold's room is a great way to talk about landscapes and size. So the first thing I want you to talk about with you is an important element of art we'll be using, which is line. And in the book you saw Harold used lots of different kinds of lines to create his landscape or his picture that he went through for his room. Another thing about Harold is that he only used one kind of crayon. So I want to show you this big word, monochromatic. Do you want to try to say it with me? 1, 2, 3, monochromatic. And monochromatic, as I broke it down, means one color. So Harold uses the monochromatic color scheme of just using purple. This picture, for example, is a monochromatic color scheme using just blue. So using different kinds of one color to create a picture. So for this project, I'm going to use purple. You can use any color you want as long as you stick to that one color. All right, so usually landscapes, we would do them in the landscape or horizontal orientation, but we're going to do it portrait or tall because we're going to have different levels of our landscape. And I have this little post-it note right here to show you kind of how we will draw a big line in the middle of our landscape. So the first thing we need to do, and you kind of see how it looks like a curvy two, is because this is about a magical crayon, we're going to draw a crayon coming from the corner. And by now, with all of our projects drawing different kinds of mediums, you should be pretty good at crayons. But just in case you forgot, you're going to do two lines that are parallel, which means next to each other and they don't cross. We're going to do a flat line like this. Going to then do another line like that coming out. So this is the paper and this is the actual waxy crayon part. Here, let me put that there so you can see what I'm talking about. And then the tip of the crayon, it's not going to be pointy, so what I like to do is above it, I do a line and then connect it. Then for this kind of part of the Crayola crayon on the paper, I'm going to do two lines with some space in between. And then to make this kind of line that's curvy, inside I do one curvy line like that, color it in between the outside line and that line. And then I do another line that is parallel to that, so the same kind of curve, like that. And color in. Then for the Crayola symbol, I'm not going to actually write Crayola, I'm just going to color in a little semicircle there. Remember, your crayon doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Do your best, as long as we know that it is some sort of drawing medium. Now, I'm going to use purple. Once again, it is monochromatic, so if you want to use a different color, you can, but you just have to stick to that color. I'm going to push hard for drawing in the waxy part of my crayon, because you can see here it's darker than the paper. And then for the paper part, I'm going to color in lightly. Now for this next part, like I said, we're going to draw a curved line like this. And the reason is that the top part we're going to draw background elements, the middle part we're going to draw middle ground elements, and the foreground we're going to draw big foreground elements. you want this line to almost touch the side. So if you want to do a pencil first to make sure, it's a good idea to do that before you trace it with your crayon. But you want it to go all the way to the edge. This one actually doesn't go to the edge. And then swoop down. So watch first. So you're gonna go across, swoop down, across all the way, swoop down, across all the way. So that way I have like 3 kind of areas to draw on top of. And it's okay if this one's closer. Actually, it's better if this one's closer. Once you have that nice kind of curve, you're going to trace it with your choice of crayon. Remember, it's the same color as your crayon that you have because it is monochromatic. One color. And I'm going to continue using my crayon. If you want to use pencil first and draw light until you get it right, that is okay. There you go. So the first thing we're going to do is the background. I want you to think about things that were strange, that Harold was so big around. What's something that Harold was too big to be real around? He had a duck because something was flying through the air. So there were mountains that Harold was climbing over. So on this top line, let's draw some mountains. You can draw your mountains pointy. They can overlap. And you can do some snow on them if you want to by doing a zigzag line at the top. Mountains would be in the background, unless you're standing right next to a mountain, but then you couldn't see its tops. Also in the background, usually you can see the sky. So if you want to draw some clouds up here, or even that plane that tried to get Harold, you can do that too. I think for a plane, I'll keep it kind of simple. I'll do a line with a little tail on the top like that. And then 2 lines like that. I kind of point like an arrow. Okay, so when Harold was getting a little smaller, kind of more medium size, what are some other things he saw on his journey? He saw a little closer than mountains, a town. So you could draw some houses on this middle line. And trees would be about the same size as a house, or a little taller, or a little shorter. There's also a lighthouse. So maybe I draw a lighthouse over here, because he did end up in the ocean. Draw some lights coming out of my lighthouse, and put some stripes on it. And maybe my town is on a shore and there's a little bit of water. This is going to be a boat, a half circle, a triangle, like that. I remember yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but think about kind of those medium-sized things that he saw. Not as quite as big as mountains, but not teeny tiny yet. Now, when Harold took that road and got really, really small, what are some things that he saw? He was smaller than a flower. So what if we did a flower? You can do a flower any way you like. What about a bird? So for a bird, you could do an oval with another oval kind of sitting like that on it. An eye with a triangle. Give it a little tail. And I'll have my bird standing. So I'm gonna have him 2 lines like that. And then I need a wing. So a big long U for its wing. And then maybe for my bird, I'll make a little worm. Or really, it's a really big worm because when Harold was this size, he was very, very small. So take some time to do some stuff that is usually really small, but draw it kind of big down here, medium size, and then things that are really large but in the background. Now I'm going to label these parts, and like I said, if you were in class with me, you know these parts. If you haven't been in class with me or done this part, you will learn about this even more. But what we just drew are things that are usually in different kinds of grounds. This back area near the top of the page, and you don't have to write this, is our background. Things that are far away. Oops, ran out of space. Things that are far away from us and look small relatively to what they actually are sized. So we know mountains are big, but they look small when they're really far away. Middle ground are medium sized, and they're kind of the halfway point far away from us. Foreground are things that are really close to us, and they look really big. And there you go. You've drawn a monochromatic landscape, kind of like Harold's picture. And you did it by showing us background, things that are far away, middle ground, things that are medium far away and a little bit bigger, and then foreground, things that are really big because they're close to us. Looking forward to seeing your monochromatic landscape inspired by a picture for Harold's room. Next time we'll be talking more about landscapes, seascapes, and cityscapes.